Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Stories from Popcorn Time, your go-to place for daily movie trivia. Today, we're setting sail into the deep waters of Hollywood history to explore the legendary thriller Jaws. Directed by a then up-and-coming Steven Spielberg, this film terrified audiences, broke box office records, and invented what we now call the summer blockbuster. From malfunctioning mechanical sharks to unexpected cameo appearances, there's a whole ocean of behind-the-scenes lore waiting to be discovered. So grab your popcorn, crank up John Williams's iconic score, and let's dive into 24 fascinating things you never knew about Jaws. You can't talk about Jaws without mentioning the star that lurked beneath the waves, nicknamed Bruce, after Spielberg's lawyer Bruce Raymer. This pneumatically powered beast weighed around 1.2 tons and stretched 25 feet, demanding a special filming setup off Martha's Vineyard. The island's relatively shallow offshore waters made it, somewhat, easier to move and reset the enormous prop. Production designer Joe Alves sketched multiple shark prototypes, some with flexible jaws, others with varied skin textures, before settling on the final design. Locals gathered in droves to watch the crew maneuver Bruce, adding to Martha's Vineyard lore. Interestingly, the production team joked that Bruce kept taking a bigger bite out of the budget, much like the legal fees from his namesake. Because the mechanical shark had a habit of breaking down, it forced Spielberg to rethink entire scenes, ultimately leading to more suspenseful storytelling. The shark's frequent malfunctions forced Spielberg to limit direct shots of the creature, which accidentally created a more suspenseful film. By not seeing the shark in full until well into the runtime, audiences felt the tension climb with each ominous musical cue. This unplanned minimalism, often cited as the less you see, the scarier it is, redefined what monster movies could. Filming the iconic opening scene, where a carefree swimmer is yanked underwater, took 3 full days. Actress Susan Backlini wore a hidden harness with cables attached to her legs. A crew of puppeteers, following Spielberg's cues, jerked her unpredictably left, right, and under the water. Backlini's panic wasn't just acting. She truly had no idea which direction they'd pull her next. Spielberg later playfully referenced this scene in his 1979 comedy, 1941, where Susan Backlini makes a cameo. Instead of being pulled under by a shark, she gets snatched by a passing Japanese submarine. The director even joked about sneaking a Bruce cameo into other films, just to see if anyone would spot it. Yes, the fearsome mechanical shark was named Bruce, after Spielberg's attorney, but that's not the only inside joke. Early scripts also included a scene of Quint causing mayhem at a screening of John Huston's 1958 adaptation of Moby Dick, starring Gregory Peck. Spielberg went so far as to shoot part of it, but Peck, who owned the rights, declined to let them use footage of his film in Jaws. Interestingly, a lighter comedic moment featuring Mayor Vaughn trying to hush a fisherman about a giant fin also got cut. Spielberg decided the extra humor would clash with the film's tension. Producer Richard Zanuck insisted on splicing actual shark footage into the film to add authenticity. Spielberg hired underwater experts Ron and Valerie Taylor, who traveled to Australia to film 14-foot great whites. To make these sharks look bigger on screen, diver Carl Rizzo, a compact 4 feet 11 inches tall, donned the wetsuit to double for Hooper inside the cage. For nearly a week, the sharks just circled curiously, refusing to deliver the menacing shots the production needed. Then, when Rizzo happened to be out of the cage, one of the real sharks got tangled in it, thrashing violently and creating heart-stopping chaos. That footage, of course, ended up in the final film, reality trumping anything the filmmakers could have staged. A lesser-known mishap involved a rogue current that nearly swept the cage out to sea, further proving that truth can be scarier than fiction. Jaws wasn't concocted in a creative vacuum. Peter Benchley's novel drew inspiration from the 1916 shark attacks on the New Jersey shore, where multiple swimmers fell victim to an unusually aggressive shark. Another spark came from Frank Mundus, a legendary Montauk fisherman who once wrangled a 4,500-pound great white. Benchley originally toyed with titles like The Stillness in the Water or Leviathan Rising, and even joked about calling it The Grin in the Waves before finally settling on the succinct, foreboding Jaws. Although Peter Benchley wrote the novel, the screenplay credit is shared with screenwriter Carl Gottlieb. Both ended up landing cameo roles. Gottlieb appears as Meadows, the mayor's aide, and Benchley pops up as the beachside reporter covering the shark attacks. Spielberg himself sneaks in via voice cameo. When Mrs. Brody radios the ORCA, Spielberg is the dispatcher on the other end. Benchley originally wrote a longer broadcast scene for his reporter cameo, but Spielberg felt it slowed the film's pacing, so Benchley's lines were trimmed down to the version audiences see today. In Peter Benchley's novel, Hooper and Ellen Brody have an affair, adding tension between Hooper and Chief Brody. Spielberg decided this subplot muddied the story and cut it. Another discarded plot point involved Mayor Vaughn being pressured by mob connections to keep the beaches open. Instead, the film portrays him as a civic-minded leader more worried about Amity's economic fallout. Early drafts even had Vaughn as a real estate mogul, highlighting his financial reasons for ignoring the shark threat. Jaws owes much of its terror to Bruce constantly malfunctioning. Spielberg had to rely on ominous music, characters' reactions, and the sight of Quint's yellow barrels bobbing on the surface, hints that the shark was near. The result? Audiences barely saw the actual shark until well into the movie, making the eventual reveal far more chilling. Sound designer John Williams also used subtle underwater thrums whenever the barrels appeared, enhancing that sense of dread without always showing the predator. Originally slated for 65 days, production ballooned to 159, thanks to mechanical breakdowns, rough Atlantic waters, and unpredictable weather. The mechanical shark reportedly sank to the ocean floor more than once. Salt water corroded equipment, and entire sets got waterlogged. Despite constant setbacks, Spielberg assured Universal Pictures that the authenticity of shooting on the open ocean would pay off, and he was right. Roy Scheider was cast after he overheard Spielberg chatting about a scene at a Hollywood party. Intrigued by the image of a giant shark lunging onto a boat, Scheider jumped into the conversation. Rumor has it he even pantomimed the creature's attack on the spot. Spielberg, who loved Scheider's work in The French Connection, was charmed and offered him the role of Chief Brody. Scheider's enthusiasm proved he was the perfect fit. Robert Shaw based his salty portrayal of Quint on Craig Kingsbury, an actual Martha's Vineyard fisherman who has a cameo as Ben Gardner in the movie. Kingsbury's colorful slang and crusty demeanor were so memorable that Shaw taped their late-night storytelling sessions to capture the accent and attitude. Some of Kingsbury's more graphic sea tales were considered for the script but deemed too intense for mainstream audiences. One of the film's most famous lines, "You're gonna need a bigger boat," was reportedly ad-libbed by Roy Scheider. It also doubled as an inside joke among the crew, who felt the production team hadn't allocated enough resources for key scenes. Scheider tried different versions of the line until Spielberg picked the one that landed perfectly. Moviegoers have been quoting it ever since. In the book, the shark dies after suffering multiple harpoon wounds. Spielberg, however, wanted a more crowd-pleasing finale. Enter the exploding air tank. Author Peter Benchley protested that a tank wouldn't realistically blow up like that, but Spielberg believed audiences needed a triumphant showdown. The cheers in test screenings proved he made the right call, and that final shot became one of the most iconic moments in horror cinema history. Originally, the scene where Alex Kintner meets his end was meant to be more graphic, with the shark leaping from the water in full view. Technical glitches with Bruce forced Spielberg to pivot to a first-person shark point of view, tinted red by the spreading blood. This subtle approach ended up being even more horrifying, letting viewers imagine the gore rather than see it directly. Spielberg briefly considered lingering on a half-submerged child's raft, but he ultimately found it too disturbing. By the end of the grueling shoot, Spielberg suspected the exhausted crew might pull a prank and throw him overboard on the final day. Taking no chances, he left before filming the now iconic exploding shark scene, leaving it to the second unit. This experience sparked the legend that Spielberg avoids directing his own final shots, though he has sometimes filmed them in subsequent movies. He jokingly refers back to his Jaws flashbacks whenever he recalls how tough that production was. Before Jaws, no movie had ever opened on more than 400 screens. Universal took a gamble by rolling it out wide, and it paid off big time. Jaws became the first film to gross over $100 million domestically. It held the record as the highest-grossing movie until Star Wars appeared 2 years later, ushering in a new era of mega hits. In the days before Jaws, studios relied on a slow, staggered release. Universal tested a new strategy, launched the film in 464 theaters in June, then expand to 700 by July as word of mouth caught fire. By staking out the summer and powering up marketing campaigns, Jaws essentially created the summer blockbuster blueprint, a model studios continue to refine today. Jaws earned multiple Academy Award nominations, but Spielberg was notoriously snubbed for Best Director. The film walked away with 3 Oscars, Best Film Editing, Best Sound, and Best Original Dramatic Score for John Williams, who initially played the now famous Da-Dun, Da-Dun theme on a piano for Spielberg. The director reportedly laughed, thinking it was a joke, only to realize it was about to become one of the most recognizable motifs in cinema. Chief Brody's line, "That's some bad hat, Harry," inspired the name Bad Hat Harry Productions, a company that later worked on films like the X-Men series. Rumor has it there was once a longer comedic exchange about the hat's brand, but Spielberg cut it for pacing. Still, that small bit of dialogue lived on in a big way. Tensions ran high on set, especially between Robert Shaw, Quint, and Richard Dreyfuss, Hooper. Their on-screen bickering mirrored real friction. Shaw's drinking annoyed Dreyfuss, who once tossed Shaw's liquor overboard to keep him sober for takes. The irony is that these heated interactions gave the film some of its most genuine conflict, particularly the famous scene where Quint and Hooper compare scars. Spielberg always wanted to direct a James Bond movie and even approached producer Cubby Broccoli more than once. Without success, he snuck a nod to 07 in Jaws. The license plate found in the tiger shark's stomach reads Louisiana 07-981, referencing both Bond's code number and the Louisiana setting of Live and Let Die. Spielberg later joked that if he had landed a Bond gig, Jaws might never have happened. That's our main rundown of Jaws facts, but we're not quite done. If you've enjoyed this dive into the making of Spielberg's classic, please hit like and subscribe so you don't miss future videos here on Stories from Popcorn Time. We love sharing hidden details from your favorite films. So stick around because we have 2 more bonus facts to really cap things off. Although Spielberg had to shoot on the ocean, he personally wasn't a fan of spending long stretches on small boats. Cast and crew nicknamed him the Land Shark, as he often hovered near larger vessels or the shoreline. This caution even led him to require additional safety precautions, like keeping rescue boats close by in case storms or rogue waves threatened the set. Over time, he grew more comfortable in open water, but the nerve-wracking Jaws shoot left him with lingering concerns. Early on, the art department crafted a few fake shark jaws to decorate sets like Quint's shack. One of these wooden trophies was later repurposed in a background shot where Chief Brody flips through shark-related news clippings. If you look closely, you'll spot it on a shelf, partially obscured by papers. Just one more glimpse into how the filmmakers took every opportunity to make Amity Island feel like a lived-in sea-obsessed community. And there you have it, 24 things you probably never knew about Jaws. This groundbreaking movie didn't just terrify beachgoers worldwide, it revolutionized how Hollywood releases, markets, and thinks about summer films. Whether you're a first-time viewer or a lifelong fan, Jaws remains a testament to the power of improvisation, collaborative storytelling, and good old-fashioned movie magic. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more movie trivia and behind-the-scenes stories here on Stories from Popcorn Time. Until next time, keep your eyes on the water and remember, you're gonna need a bigger boat.